Toronto Maple Leafs held their end-of-season media availabilities Monday following their second-round series loss to the Panthers. Lots of questions, including the future of this particular Leafs core.
We'll see what happens, but I think, like I've said, I've been very fortunate to play for this team, and I want to continue to play for this team and hope I get to play for this team. So it's all I've ever dreamed of as a kid, and to be able to do it now, it's pretty surreal. So hopefully I get to continue that honor on and be with this squad.
My intention is to be here. I think I've reciprocated that before, how much I enjoy playing here and what it means to me and the organization, my teammates, and how much I just enjoy being here.
Look, I love it here. I don't want to be anywhere else, and this is where I want to win, and I want us to give it a go as long as we can.
I think there's a continued belief, our group here, and I think the standard that we have and what we're trying to accomplish and continuing to push for more. Obviously, winning is extremely difficult. We're continuing to find our way through that and do what's necessary to obviously win the Stanley Cup.
My family is a hugely important part of what I do. So for me to commit to anything without, having a fuller understanding of what this year took on them is probably unfair for me to answer where I'm at. I wish I could give you more, but we haven't been able to have those full discussions yet. But it was a very hard year on them. And thus, it's tough for me to... What I would say is that I'm not going to... I definitely don't have it in me to go anywhere else. So it'll either be here or it'll be taking time to recalibrate, reflect on the seasons here. But you won't see me next week pop up elsewhere. I can't put them through that after this year.
Kyle and I have a lot of history, and I believe in a lot of the things that he's done here that have put us in a position to succeed. Obviously, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Kyle, not just for what he's done for this organization, but what he's done for me personally in my growth and my development as a coach. In terms of what happens from here is out of my control.
So Kyle Dubas has finished his 5-year contract as Leafs GM, and here's how it went under Dubas. Did not advance past the second round throughout these 5 seasons. Playoff success has been elusive. Regular season success has been a given. They won a division title in 2021, just the franchise's second division title since their last Stanley Cup in 1967. Oh, yes. Sometimes I think I should wear just a black turtleneck and black pants on this show all the time, but I only do that when I'm walking over to the other side of the set in Studio 9. Here's Craig Button and Frankie Corrado. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Excellent. Yourself?
I paused in the dark there, and Jamie, our director, hates that. He wants some light on me. He wants some light on my face.
Well, I look better in the dark.
Frankie and I are not going to argue that. Auston Matthews' no-trade clause kicks in July the 1st. He says he wants the new contract extension. Before we get to that, I want to show you guys something. Here is a look at the top 10 highest-paid players 2023-2024, the upcoming season. Okay, Frankie knows exactly where I'm going with this. You're looking at this list. Matthews already at number 4. There's a perception that he wants to be the highest-paid player in the game. He's already making more than David Pastrnak, Craig. It feels like he's making the right amount to me. Am I wrong, or should he be paid more than Nathan MacKinnon?
Well, I mean, here's the bottom line for Auston Matthews. He's been a most valuable player in the National Hockey League. He's been a first-team All-Star center. He produces at superstar rates. So that's what you get paid. And we look at that, but Auston Matthews' next contract will start in the 24-25 season.
Right.
Okay, so like you got to project ahead. So if you want to compare it to Pastrnak now or to Nathan MacKinnon, things change. I mean, you look at it, Nathan MacKinnon is making more than Connor McDavid.
But if you're negotiating now, aren't the Leafs going to say, hey, look at this list. Why am I paying you more than Nathan MacKinnon?
Well, ask Colorado how it worked for them, because Nathan MacKinnon is making more than Connor McDavid.
Yeah,
right?
but not much more.
It doesn't, but nobody would even suggest that Nathan MacKinnon deserves to make more than Connor McDavid. Nobody in the entire National Hockey League on the hockey planet deserves to make more than Connor McDavid. This is a superstar, and a superstar deserves to be paid. And even when he signed this contract, I mean, we can look back and say, oh, coming out of entry level, did they have to pay him? I mean, he's performed to that level. He deserves everything he's getting. So how does it work for him individually? That's something that Auston and his representatives are going to have to look at. But where the Toronto Maple Leafs have to look at, how does it work for our team?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
And he could very easily go to the Leafs and say, I want a large number, and it's going to be an egregious number, but he should play it to the point where it's like, this is a fair market value for where things are going, because if he's going to eat up too much percentage of the cap, you can't talk about winning games. Like, you can't be about winning championships and winning games if you want to eat up that much of the salary cap. So as much as he could go to the Leafs and put a card down on the table and say, this is it, and what are you going to do about it? I doubt he would do that. But with that being said, I also doubt he would go to the Leafs and say, I'm ready to commit to 8 years here. Like, he seems like the kind of guy where it's going to be that mid-range kind of deal where he knows that at some point here, whether he's 30 or 31, he's going to cash in for another one, because you don't know what the economic landscape of the league is going to look like down the road.
Well, but the other part of that is, we know the cap's going up.
Yep.
I mean, the only reason the cap has been flat relatively is because of the pandemic.
Yep.
And the agreement that the PA and the NHL had to make. And now, you know, after next year, there is going to be a significant rise in the salary cap. And so what the percentage is, you know, 14 million, I'm just picking a number, might not be a bigger percentage at the cap that's going to be in 2 years' time as opposed to what it is right now. So that's where the agent and the player have to do it. Frankie, you're right. You know what? You have to factor in, what does it mean for the team? What does it mean for me? But when we talk about dollars and value, Auston Matthews has delivered big time on value.
One quick one also, because it's not like Auston Matthews should take a discount to play for the Leafs, especially when his partner in crime, in Mitch Marner, he got every last penny he was owed, or he thought he was owed, and he got that contract. So Auston Matthews is not from Toronto. He didn't grow up a Leafs fan. He doesn't owe anyone anything. It's more about what's a fair deal that gets you to your market value and still allows the Leafs to build a team around him, because we're seeing now in the playoffs, as much as you have superstars, and it's a great storyline, it's a great narrative, all the teams that are still in are complete teams, and that's been the theme throughout this playoffs.
Okay, so we talk about complete teams, right, and everything. Keep in mind, and Jay and I talked about this on Sunday night, the tenet of the philosophy was the core four.
Yeah.
And like, so with it came sacrifices in other areas. You can't say now, well, they weren't able to build a complete team. Kyle Dubas said, this is the tenet of my philosophy. He bet on it. He said, this is what we can do, and I believe we can win. They haven't come close. So understand that from a management point of view, you got to evaluate this as well.
Okay, let's move on. The rest of the core four, you heard them. It was very positive on Monday. Very much everybody wants to be back. Everyone wants to return. Everyone believes in each other throughout the core four. Frankie, do you believe they'll all be back?
I don't. And why don't you approach this from process of elimination? If you think Auston Matthews is the priority, which he is, he needs to be back. John Tavares, $11 million second-line center who struggles at 5-on-5. You're not going to get rid of that contract. He's got no movement. It's just, he will be there.
Yep.
So really it comes down to two players. Is it going to be Mitch Marner, or is it going to be William Nylander? You'll get some clarity on Nylander as far as what he wants to do long-term. Everyone says this at the end of the year. It's like they got the script from their agent that says, okay, here's your bullet points. You like being here. You haven't thought about the future yet. And yeah, like those are the things that everyone says, but really behind closed doors, there's different conversations being had. Every player has that, whether we know it or we like it or not. So once you get there, you say, okay, it's either going to be Marner, it's going to be Nylander. Which player out of those do you move out that helps change the complexion of the team the most? And what I mean by that is changes a little bit of the wiring, a little bit of the DNA of this team. It's just something about having the same type of personality, it's almost like a passive personality at times. There's just too much of it. It seems a little redundant at this point. And it's great in the playoffs that players want to do a little bit more. They want to play a little more physical. They want to be involved a little bit more, a little more competitive. But when you are built a certain way, when your frame and structure is built a certain way, it allows you to have a little more success like that. Like for me, I was 6'1", 190 pounds. I could go from corner to corner trying to hit guys, and you know what happened? I would just wear out. And it's just, I'm not built that way. The Leafs need someone within that core that that is just wired a little bit different and built a little bit different. So you have to decide whether Nylander fetches you that or Marner fetches you that.
So you use the question, like, will they be back? I think the question for me is, should they be back together as a group? And for me, it's a definitive no. But it's great to talk about Marner and Nylander. And the linchpin for me is Auston Matthews. He's the linchpin. The biggest question for me is, who's going to be the person that's going to be talking to Auston Matthews, talking to other NHL teams to try to acquire what you think they need? Because until they get that figured out, nothing else matters. Who is going to be the general manager? Is it going to be Kyle Dubas or is it going to be somebody else? You don't got a lot of time.
Well, let's talk about
you got less than 6, but that's where we're at, Jay. So until they get that, that's the biggest question for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now.
Yeah.
We can all speculate on who is going to sit down and say, oh, what's your number, Auston? Oh, William, do you want to be here? What's your number? Oh, what could we fetch? Well, bottom line is, until you figure out who your leader is, nothing else can get accomplished.
And so listening to Kyle Dubas on Monday, very interesting stuff, because you were under the impression that the Leafs had an offer on the table and that he was just pondering that offer and that there were other offers potentially from teams like Pittsburgh and the world was his oyster. Then he comes out Monday and it was pretty emotional. You know, he talked about how hard the season was on his family and, first of all, ruled out any other team, which has to make Leaf fans feel good to know that they're not going to lose him to someone else potentially. But do you guys truly think he's going to be back at this point?
Well, Auston Matthews also said the same things too. You know, to tell me you ruled out any other team, if Kyle Dubas doesn't have a job and a team comes to him and says, I get where he's at. I mean, that was honest. It was straightforward. You know, it was transparent and everything. But Kyle's wired to be involved. Obviously, he wants to consider his family and first and foremost. I get that. But at the end of it all, right, do I think that Kyle Dubas will be? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And I'm not going to speculate on somebody else's future. I don't know if he wants to be back. I don't know if they want him back. But all I know is this, and I know it definitively. They need to make a decision there and get it done
very
quick.
soon. And I'm a little more bullish on Kyle Dubas coming back, because for the longest time, this group has failed in the same way year after year after year. And what he's done is try to build around the core. He's tried everything to build around those 4 guys. What he hasn't done is change that. And it feels like now is the time for him to do that. So he's given them a lot of runway. And it's hard to ignore the fact that they're very skilled players and there's a lot of potential there. But we've seen it now. We've seen the sample size. So no one is owed you anything in the NHL. You really aren't. It's a privilege to be there. But Kyle Dubas has an opportunity here, if he is back, which I think he should be back, to do something bold, do something big, to change the complexion of the team. He hasn't done it yet. So when you're talking about his runway as a GM, that's the next step for him. Do something like that, and then we'll see really what the sample size is. We've seen the sample size for the players. We're not quite at the end of the runway for Kyle Dubas yet. I'm a little more bullish on him coming back. But like you said, it takes a toll on his family, takes a toll on your personal health, if you want to call it that. It's a very taxing job, as Craig Button can attest to. But it's one of those things where if he wants to be back and the team wants him back, I'm not sure who else could do that job better for that team right now.
Yeah, and fair point. Like, you know, does Kyle want to do it? Can he do it? And you got to, like, again, you know, he's had 5 years. He's had 5 years. And on his philosophy, which is we can win like this. It wasn't about making the playoffs. It wasn't about, if you come out and say, hey, listen, you know what, we're going to just be a good regular season team and we're going to take our chances in the playoffs. Never has that been said. It's been, we can win with this philosophy. And I've said it. They have failed spectacularly come playoff time with the core 4. With this philosophy, can Kyle change his philosophy? Yeah. I don't even think it's, when you believe in something so deeply, okay, and there's nothing saying that it's wrong to believe in that way, but when the evidence is so overwhelmingly convincing that it hasn't worked, he has no other option if he comes back but to be bold.
It feels like you guys are agreeing on that very thing. Guys, this is fun. We could keep going forever. But we have to take a commercial break because still to come. Shohei Ohtani's on the mound in Baltimore, but his hitting display was the story Monday. And after Vladdy Guerrero Jr. went airborne, we're counting down big men, big moves in the SportsCenter Top 10. Bam Bam Bigelow might make an appearance.